Coming up, the Phillies take one in extra, and the Brewers get another wild win, this time against the Cubs. This is Locked On Game to Game, MLB.
Every game, every team, every angle. Locked On Game to Game, your team every day.
Welcome in. You're listening to Locked On Game to Game MLB. Local experts join us to recap all of the action for you from yesterday across Major League Baseball. I'm your host, Kainani Stevens. Thank you for making Locked On your first listen every single weekday. It's another win streak for the Reds. They swept the Nationals for their fifth straight victory on Thursday. Locked On Nationals has the insight of what's made the Reds so good after they took 4 straight losses to them.
The Washington Nationals lose in extra innings against the Cincinnati Reds. Ryan Clary from Locked On Nationals here. You can catch me over on Twitter at RyanClary11 as well. But where do we start from today's game? Mackenzie Gore did get the start, but we all know what happened. The rain came in. The rain delay happened for about an hour and a half or so, however many minutes that was. Then they decided to pull him. And honestly, I think that was the best thing for Mackenzie Gore because we know this Reds team, they like to hit the baseball. Mackenzie Gore kind of needed an extra day of rest, in my opinion, heading into this All-Star break. So honestly, I didn't really hate that so much. I was at the game. I didn't want to see whoever else was going to pitch besides Mackenzie Gore. I was there for Gore, but he did not pitch, and I think that was the right decision after that. But Jeimer Candelario as well did get hurt in this game, so that is something that Nationals fans and really Major League Baseball fans are going to have to watch because he's going to be a big name come this trade deadline.
The Cincinnati Reds, the dramatic Reds, the comeback Reds get a 4-game sweeper. Some are coming to call it a mop-up of the Washington Nationals. What's up? This is Jeff Carr from the Locked On Reds podcast. And for the 20th straight game, the Reds have hit a home run. They are one away from the franchise record for longest streak with a homer in a game. Nick Senzel provided the dramatics. Absolutely beautiful play by him in the bottom of the 9th inning to save what surely would have been the game-winning run for the Nationals, and then comes back in the 10th inning and blasts a home run. Absolutely amazing stuff from him as the Reds get the win. They're now 10 games over 500 and heading into this weekend series right before the All-Star break against the Milwaukee Brewers. It's time to create some distance in the NL Central.
Former Cub Victor Caratini hit a home run against his old team in the 8th to give the Brewers a win in their series finale with Chicago. Locked On hosts with both sides recap the exciting finish.
Hi, everybody. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers. Well, the Brewers do gain a split in this series with the Cubs, and I feel like the Brewer catchers have been clutch all season long. That's the one spot I can't complain about. It was Caratini today, a solo home run in the bottom of the 9th inning, snapped the 5-5 tie after Mize gave up a 5-3 lead in the top half of the 8th inning by giving up a 2-run shot. Brewers a little weak in the bullpen. They're a little short on the bullpen right now, I should say, because tiresome. They've had to use a lot of bodies out there, so Mize had to be in there in the 8th inning. Probably a spot that Craig Counsell does not want to use him in, but he gives up the 2-run home run. Brewers come back, and they hold on and win this game. But how about our guy Payamps closing it out, gave up a hit in the 9th inning. Peralta pitched into the 6th inning, 10 strikeouts, high pitch count again. Now the Reds are coming in. Huge 3-game series with the Reds beginning Friday night. We'll talk to you a little bit later on previewing the series on Locked On Brewers.
Cubs drop a really tough one in the finale in Milwaukee, 6-5 today. Just a really fun series and a back-and-forth game. Cubs trailed 4-1 in this game, rallied to tie the game at 5, 2 2-run home runs from Cody Bellinger and Yan Gomes, but Michael Fulmer couldn't keep it tied late. Former Cub Victor Caratini, who has a habit of this now against the Cubs, hit the game-winning home run. It was a really fun week. The Cubs probably feel like they should have won 3 out of 4. They ended up splitting, and with the way Cincinnati's playing right now, it's just not good enough. They find themselves 8 games out now of first place, which is a season high heading here into the All-Star break. A really fun week in Milwaukee, but it ends up in 2 wins and 2 losses for the Cubs.
The Red Sox scored 6 runs in the 7th inning, and they beat the Rangers at Fenway last night. Our Locked On hosts have the recap after the final in Boston.
What a fun game and series win for the Red Sox. I am so happy right now. That 7th inning had me pumped up. Scoring all those runs, that to me is the Red Sox offense that we know and love, that can do damage and a lot of it, and can really, really put up a bunch of runs at one time, particularly even in one inning. And I feel like we've seen that a lot early on in the season, but lately we have been waiting for it, and it hasn't really come. But tonight's game and that 7th inning, I was thinking to myself, wow, this is the offense that we found to be so fun for a good portion of the season to begin with. So I'm glad they found that offensive spark again. I think it'll only get better once Story is in the picture, but hoping for just continuing to play good baseball, especially with the A's coming into town next.
Coming up, the Orioles blow out the Yankees in New York. This is Locked On Game to Game MLB. Today's edition of Locked On Game to Game is brought to you by Gametime. Buying tickets last minute should not be expensive, and it should not be difficult to do. Gametime has you covered in that regard. They have the Gametime guarantee. That means you will get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less somewhere else, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. So download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONMLB. You will get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, you can create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Welcome back. You're listening to Locked On Game to Game MLB. I'm your host, Kainani Stevens. The Orioles dominated in the Bronx yesterday. They scored 14 runs to get an easy win against the Yankees. Locked On Orioles has more after the finish.
Just got to clear my throat for this one. Whew. Yankees lose. Wow. I mean, have we had any more fun this season? 14-1, the Orioles clobber the Yankees. Gunnar Henderson with 4 for 4 with 2 homers before the 5th inning even started. He was ridiculous. Ryan O'Hearn was amazing. The Orioles had 20 hits, a season high. And oh yeah, Kyle Bradish threw 6 shutout innings as well for the O's. One of probably their most complete game of the season. The sky is not falling. The O's split the series with the Yankees. They are right back on track. They're 2-0 in the Colton Cowser era. It's fun to watch the Orioles hit the baseball once again. I will recap it all coming up on Friday's episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast.
Luis Severino cannot figure out what's wrong. And if he doesn't figure out what's wrong soon, he might lose his spot in the rotation. I'm Stacey Gotsoulias of Locked On Yankees, and the Yankees lost to the Orioles 14-1. Thanks to Luis Severino's 2 2/3 innings in which he gave up 7 runs. Whew! It was bad. None of his pitches looked right. His velocity is still there, but every pitch was in the zone, and the Orioles were feasting upon those pitches in the zone. It was as if he were tossing batting practice. And things only got worse when Albert Abreu came in and pitched 2/3 of an inning and gave up 6 runs. So the Yankees drop the last game of the series 14-1. They split the series with Baltimore, and we talk about it on the next Locked On Yankees. And we answer your Fan Mail Friday questions. And yeah, that's a rough one.
A pair of RBI singles in the 11th allowed the Phillies to finish a sweep of the Rays in Tampa after beating the best home team in baseball 3 times in a row. Locked On Phillies goes through that win.
What a win by the Philadelphia Phillies. Connor Thomas, your host of Locked On Phillies. The Phils become the very first team in 2023 to sweep the Tampa Bay Rays. The road winning streak is up to 12. It took 11 innings to do it, but my goodness, what a pitching effort from the Philadelphia Phillies tonight. Christopher Sanchez, amazing. Jose Alvarado battled. Matt Strahm, great work by him. I mean, just absolutely outstanding work. Oh, I missed my guy Craig Kimbrell, who also shut it down late. What work by the Phillies. Clutch, a sweep. Man, this team is doing so many things well right now. They battle. They found out how to win, and the league let them get hot. Don't look now, because the Philadelphia Phillies, not only are they in playoff position, but they are climbing the standings every darn day. This team is hot. The league is in trouble. Phillies baseball is back, baby. We'll talk more about it on the next episode of Locked On Phillies.
The Marlins couldn't turn any of their 9 hits into a run yesterday, getting shut out by the Cardinals in Miami. Locked On Cardinals tells us how St. Louis kept the Miami offense off the scoreboard.
Jack Flaherty's stock continues to rise after a stellar performance against the Marlins. Hey, it's JD from Locked On Cardinals, and after a heartbreaking loss last night, the Cardinals gave the ball to Jack Flaherty, and he picked up right where he left off in his last outing, throwing shutout ball for 6 2/3 innings tonight. He's now thrown 12 2/3 shutout innings in the month of July. Very, very good. Meanwhile, offensively, Nolan Arenado smashes his 17th home run of the year to give the Cardinals the lead in the 6th inning. They tack on 2 more, and the bullpen combination of Stratton, Gallegos, and Hicks blank the fish the rest of the way to earn the 3-0 shutout win and avoid the 4-game sweep. Flaherty moves to 6-5 on the year and continues to look like he'll be a major trade chip for the team at the trade deadline. The team is off to Chicago to face the White Sox next. For the latest updates and info, be sure to keep it Locked On Cardinals.
The Blue Jays and White Sox played 2 in Chicago to make up for Wednesday's rainout. Our Locked On host recapped the night game after the Blue Jays took Game 1 in extra innings.
Hello, friends. Craig Ballard, Locked On Blue Jays. How sweep it is as the Toronto Blue Jays sweep the doubleheader today versus the Chicago White Sox, which means how sweep it is as the Toronto Blue Jays sweep the series from the Chicago White Sox, which means how sweep it is as the Toronto Blue Jays sweep the season series from the Chicago White Sox. I love it. Have to take care of business against the teams that you're supposed to take care of business against, right? Now today, some parts today were dicey, no doubt. Considering Game 1 went extra innings, in total there were 20 innings played today in this doubleheader. In the first 10 of those innings, the Blue Jays scored 0 runs. Like I said, dicey. 11 runs in the next 10 innings. Thank you, but wow. Okay, but they got the sweep. Nate Pearson called on for a 6-out save in Game 2 of the doubleheader. Got the job done. Love that. Tune into the Locked On Blue Jay podcast tomorrow as we get set to turn the page from this triumphant series to look at the final series before the All-Star break as the Blue Jays head into Detroit this weekend to take on the lowly Detroit Tigers.
The Chicago White Sox lost a doubleheader to the Toronto Blue Jays on Thursday. Hey, I'm Nick Morawski from Locked On White Sox. It is rather difficult to be swept in a doubleheader, but the White Sox found several ways to get that done on Thursday. They lost 6-2 in Game 1, then 5-4 in Game 2. In Game 1, White Sox starter Lance Lynn, an absolute gem, an outstanding outing, and really showcased himself as the trade deadline approaches in the next few weeks. Lynn went 7 innings, only gave up a 1 hit. White Sox are now 15 games under 500. They're 8.5 back in the AL Central, and they welcome the St. Louis Cardinals to the South Side this weekend for a 3-game series. Dylan Cease on the hill to kick things off on Friday night. For more, check out the Locked On White Sox podcast.
Pirates and Dodgers met for the last time this year on Thursday night with the season series tied. Our Locked On local experts tell you who came out on top in the final game.
Don't look now, but the Dodgers are only a half a game out of first place. What's up? It's Jeff from Locked On Dodgers. Dodgers beat the Pirates 5-2 to win the series 3-1. Combined with the Diamondbacks loss to the Mets, the Dodgers now only half a game behind the D-backs, tied in the loss column, and getting hot at the right time, and hopefully can go into the All-Star break and get some much-needed rest, because this game, the odds were stacked against them. Julio Urias pitched for the Dodgers. He had been struggling recently. He pitched great. The bullpen took down 3 innings. They've been struggling recently. They pitched great. And all in all, more than you could have asked for from this game. The offense put up 5 runs. Dodgers win, a great team win to pull up within half a game and put them in very good position to go into the All-Star break in first place. Be sure to check out Locked On Dodgers first thing every morning, every weekday morning, because we are talking about this game and every game all the time for you. Thanks a lot.
The Guardians won a division matchup with the Royals to start their 4-game series right before the break. Our Locked On Guardians host tells us more after Cleveland's win.
Tanner Bivey might not have been at his sharpest, but luckily you don't have to be sharp when you're facing the Kansas City Royals. Cleveland wins 5-1. Going to use a phrase I don't use much this year, powered by home runs. 3 home runs to get them to that 3-1 lead before some timely hitting got it up to, I believe, eventually a 6-1 victory for Cleveland. Twins don't play today. That puts Cleveland now a 1.5 games back with 3 against the Royals on deck. The Twins have 3 against the Orioles. There's a very good chance that Cleveland could end the pre-All-Star break part of the year. I'm not going to call it the halfway point because we're beyond the halfway point, but the pre-All-Star break part of the year in first place. We'll see how things go, but when you are Cleveland and the Kansas City Royals are as bad as they are, they need to keep chugging along. A lot of players had solid performances. It did look a little scary at first. His timely hitting wasn't there, but Cleveland ends up powering their way to victory over the lowly Royals. Go, go, Guardians, go.
That'll do it for this edition of Locked On Game to Game MLB. We thank you for making Locked On your first listen every single weekday. Now go make sure you're subscribed to Locked On MLB and your favorite team's Locked On podcast on YouTube and wherever else you get your podcasts from. I'm Kainani Stevens. This has been Locked On Game to Game.